The year is 1849. New York City is booming, filthy, rapidly changing. William Grumbold, a German immigrant and former hatter, is bankrupt, his factory closed, his family penniless. He owes money to everyone, including his landlord. Eviction is imminent. Desperation clings to him like a bad smell. He has nothing left except a workshop filled with old tools and a brain buzzing with ideas he can't quite grab onto. Then, a memory surfaces, a snippet from his childhood in Germany. He remembers seeing a paper fastener that held sheets of music together. Could that be the answer? It had a pin to pierce the pages, a little hook to catch it when it came out. Grumbold sees possibilities. He wants to make something useful out of the scrap metal he has lying around. Something simple, elegant, efficient. After days of work, he holds it in his hands. One piece of wire twisted into a U shape, with two ends sticking out of the bottom. Two little prongs that would grip onto cloth, keep it together. He calls it a wafer fastener. In fact, it looks nothing like the modern safety pin. It's too flimsy, but it contains the principle, the idea of the pin piercing the fabric, getting caught on the way out. It's a workable concept. Grumbold, however, isn't interested in making a simple fastener. He wants to sell it to businessmen, hotel owners. He dreams of grand commercial success. Sadly, his timing couldn't be worse. No one wants this gadget, and Grumbold is forced to keep improving his design. He moves to Philadelphia and opens up shop. Again, he starts selling sewing aids and notions, bits and bobs people use for mending clothes. Among them, his new invention. His pins sell slowly. People like the simplicity of it, but it doesn't catch on. Undeterred, Grumbold continues to refine the design. He works until he has something stronger, simpler, more obvious. It clicks into place. He has his patent application ready. He believes his creation will save him from ruin. It's time to strike it rich. Grumbold secures a patent for his improved version of the pin on April 26, 1851. It wasn't the first pin with a spring and a clutch device, but it was the first to include a hinge joint, which allowed the pin to fold flat. It could pass through fabric and fasten with the aid of a spring, and then release instantly with a little twist. The rest, as they say, is history. What sets Grumbold apart is the intent, the marketing strategy. He doesn't just make a product, he tries to sell it. He travels to every major city in the US, Europe and Asia. He peddles his wares, the widget that will revolutionize dress. He sells the notion of convenience, of saving time, of moving faster through life. And the world listens because the world is busy. Women are wearing looser, flowing styles, layered skirts and tops that require a strong, dependable fastener. Men are embracing the fashion of carrying their trousers high on their hips, leaving room for a discreet pin to keep the waistband in place. With each sale, Grumbold claws his way out of poverty. By the 1870s, he's a wealthy man, living in a mansion on the outskirts of Philadelphia. Business is booming. The pin becomes a symbol of the age, of progress, of modernization. The phrase "pinned up" becomes synonymous with being ready, prepared, fastened for action. The safety pin is everywhere. Artists immortalize it in paintings and photographs. The best minds tried to improve upon it. In 1878, Samuel B. Fay writes to the editor of Scientific American proposing a triangular-shaped pin that would resist twisting. Some hotels put safety pins on their menus, serving pinned-up toast and pinned-up chicken. And it's not just about utility or fashion. The safety pin is a cultural icon. Think about it. Have you ever used a safety pin to hold up a torn hem? Have you ever fastened a badge to your jacket or a political pin to your lapel? Have you ever created an impromptu belt to hold your pants up? Maybe you've even used it to hang pictures, or hold a curtain up, or even make temporary jewelry. The safety pin becomes a jack of all trades, an emblem of resourcefulness, a testament to human ingenuity. Its uses are endless. But as the 20th century begins, people take it for granted. They don't realize how much they owe to that one man who, in a time of desperation, invented a marvel of simplicity. The story of the safety pin is also a story of how little it takes to change the world. It's a lesson in efficiency, in thinking outside the box. When William Grumbold found himself facing eviction and destitution, he didn't give up. He didn't blame fate or sit back and complain. He dug into his past and his imagination to create a solution to a simple problem, a solution so elegant, so effective, so easy to make, that it changed the world of fashion forever. Today, billions of these pins are made and used every year. It's difficult to imagine life without them. They're cheap, they're plentiful, they're indispensable, and when they wear out, you just throw them away. You never think about where they came from. the long road of innovation and necessity that brought them to your fingertips. It's a reminder that innovations don't need to be earth-shattering. Sometimes it's the small things, the mundane, unassuming objects that make the biggest difference to our lives. The next time you reach for a safety pin to fix a torn hem, or fasten a badge to your jacket, take a moment to appreciate its history, the struggles, the triumphs, the brilliant simplicity of a solution to a problem you probably never even thought about. And if you find yourself in a situation where you need to buckle your own breastplate, remember William Grumbold and the quiet revolution of the safety pin. It might just be the most humble and heroic tale you've ever heard. If you've watched this show for any length of time, then you know that I love Roman history. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that I am happy to talk about pretty much anything relating to the Romans, including something as seemingly mundane as the brooch. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk about brooches, specifically the Roman brooch, more specifically the fibula, which was the brooch used by the Romans and other cultures throughout Europe during the late classical and early medieval periods. So if you're ready to dive into a discussion of a garment fastener that existed 2,000 years ago, well then let's get to it. So when I started thinking about talking about the fibula on this channel, I was faced with a bit of a problem. I mean, how do you stretch a 30-minute episode of television around something as innocuous as a brooch? I mean, sure, I could wax poetically about how the fibula is a simple yet elegant solution to a very human problem, the problem of keeping two pieces of clothing together. But I feel like that probably wouldn't keep you watching the whole video. And to be honest, I really wanted to keep this video relatively brief, given that the fibulas I'm discussing here aren't exactly renowned for their longevity. After all, unlike the Colosseum or the aqueducts or the Pantheon, the fibulas that you've probably seen aren't all that numerous. After all, of the thousands of Roman artifacts that have survived the sands of time, only a relative handful of fibulas have made it into the present day, and that's hardly surprising. After all, the fibula was designed to do only two things. It was a tool that held cloaks in place, and it was a decoration, a piece of jewelry that signified wealth and power and, well, in some rare cases, gender. So it's not difficult to understand why there aren't more around today. Most of them probably broke at some point or were simply lost in the shuffle of everyday Roman life. And what few did survive weren't exactly deemed worthy of preservation in the Middle Ages, and so they ended up as nothing more than grave goods, buried with people who had died centuries ago. But while the number of surviving examples may be small, they do paint a fairly complete picture of an object that's both interesting and surprisingly complex. In fact, far from being the simple garment clasp that many people think it was, the fibula was a highly sophisticated piece of technology and elegant balance between function and form that played a crucial role in the lives of the Romans. In fact, without the fibula, it's entirely possible that the Roman military would have looked quite different. After all, it was the fibula that kept the Roman legionaries' cloaks in place, allowing them to maneuver quickly and easily, which was essential for their tight formations and rapid movements. Without this ability to stay warm in the cold northern climates while also moving quickly, it is unlikely that the Roman armies would have been able to conquer and hold such vast swaths of land. The reason for that is because the fibula was, in many ways, the perfect piece of equipment for the Roman army. It was light, durable, and easy to use, and not only did it keep the cloak in place, but it also served as a convenient way of carrying it when not in use. In fact, the Romans were so enamored with the fibula that they evolved dozens of different types, each with its own advantages. The simplest type was the aucisa fibula, which had a hinged pin that could be folded back into the brooch when not in use, making it easier to store and carry. More elaborate brooches, such as the crossbow brooch, had a spring-loaded pin that shot back into place when the brooch was closed, making it easier and faster to put on and take off. And some brooches were even designed with multiple pins, allowing them to be worn in different ways for different occasions. Of course, the fibula wasn't just a tool, it was also a status symbol. The more elaborate and expensive the brooch, the higher the status of the wearer. Simple bronze brooches were worn by the common folk, while silver and gold brooches were reserved for the wealthy and powerful. The design of the brooch could also convey a message. For example, the eagle brooch was a common symbol of the Roman Empire, while the laurel wreath brooch symbolized victory and triumph. It's important to note that the brooch wasn't unique to the Romans. Brooches had been used by many other cultures throughout history, each with their own style and design, but the Romans took the brooch to new heights, developing a sophisticated range of styles and designs that were both practical and aesthetically pleasing. For example, The Romans were known for their exquisite taste in jewelry and their skill in working with precious metals, and this was fully on display in their brooches, which often featured intricate designs and precious stones. But they didn't just make ornate brooches for themselves. The Romans were also skilled traders and merchants, and they exported their fine brooches throughout their empire and beyond. In fact, Roman brooches have been found as far away as Britain and India, indicating the far-reaching influence of Roman culture and taste. The fibula was a crucial part of the Roman military machine, allowing soldiers to stay warm and maneuver quickly and easily. It was also a status symbol, with the most elaborate brooches being worn by the wealthy and powerful. The Romans developed a wide variety of brooch designs, each with its own advantages and symbolism. But it wasn't just the Romans who wore brooches. Other cultures throughout Europe also had their own styles and designs. But the Romans took the brooch to new heights, developing a sophisticated range of styles and designs that were both practical and aesthetically pleasing. In fact, Roman brooches were so highly regarded that they became a status symbol of the empire, a sign of wealth and power that could be worn by anyone lucky enough to own one. And while the fibula may have gone out of style after the fall of the Roman Empire, it is a fascinating artifact that gives us a glimpse into the ingenuity and sophistication of the ancient world. The study of fibulae has revealed a great deal about Roman culture and society, from their fashion and status to their beliefs and values. In fact, some fibulae have been found with amulets or inscribed with religious symbols, suggesting that they were not just seen as tools, but also as objects of religious significance. They were believed to have the ability to ward off evil spirits and bring good luck, which is why they were often worn by soldiers going into battle, or by those seeking to make an important impression. The Romans were a deeply superstitious people, and they believed that certain objects had the power to ward off evil spirits and bring good luck. Fibulae, with their bright colors and intricate designs, were thought to be particularly effective at repelling evil spirits, and were often worn as a form of protection. This belief was also reinforced by the fact that fibulae were often made from precious metals, like gold and silver, which were seen as having special powers. In addition to their religious significance, fibulae also served as a form of identification. The designs and symbols on a fibula could indicate the wearer's social status, occupation, or even political affiliation. For example, a fibula with an eagle might have belonged to a member of the military, while a fibula with a laurel wreath might have belonged to a senator. By understanding the symbols and designs on a fibula, archaeologists and historians can gain valuable insights into the identity and lifestyle of the person who wore it. One of the most fascinating aspects of the fibula is its evolution over time. As the Roman Empire expanded and changed, so did the styles and designs of fibulae. During the early days of the empire, fibulae were often simple and functional, but as the empire grew wealthier and more sophisticated, so did the fibulae. During the late imperial period, fibulae became more elaborate and ornate, reflecting the wealth and luxury of the time. They were made from precious metals and decorated with colorful enamel and gemstones. While it is impossible to know for sure what went through the minds of the Romans when they fastened their fibulae, it's likely that they saw them as more than just a simple tool. For many, their fibulae were a way of expressing their identity, their status, and their beliefs. They were a tangible link to the wider Roman world, a symbol of their connection to the empire and its values. And as the Roman Empire declined and fell, the fibulae continued to evolve, adapting to the changing times and incorporating new styles and designs. Even when the Romans were gone, the fibula survived, becoming a part of the cultural landscape of Europe for centuries to come. In the end, the fibula was more than just a simple garment fastener. It was a piece of Roman life, a symbol of their culture and their values, and a tangible link to the wider Roman world. And while it is impossible to know for sure what went through the minds of the Romans when they fastened their fibulae, it's likely that they saw them as more than just a simple tool. For many, their fibulae were a way of expressing their identity, their status, and their beliefs. They were a tangible link to the wider Roman world, a symbol of their connection to the empire and its values. And as the Roman Empire declined and fell, the fibulae continued to evolve, adapting to the changing times and incorporating new styles and designs. Even when the Romans were gone, the fibula survived, becoming a part of the cultural landscape of Europe for centuries to come. For over 1,000 years, the world has been stuck in what modern eyes would call a dark age, a time when clothes wouldn't stay fastened, drafts were everywhere, and your fingers were frequently stabbed. But that's about to change, and it all starts with a stupid debt. Let me explain. For 1,000 years, The standard female dress in Europe looks basically the same. It's called a cotehardie, which is a fancy French word for baggy lady trousers. Well, maybe not quite that simple. It's a combination of undertunics, overtunics, belts, and cloaks, lots of loose, flowing layers that could easily come undone, leaving you exposed, cold, and in an absolute fury. Fastening all those layers together was a monumental pain. For a wealthy noblewoman, there were servants to help, but even she would need to contend with the substantial bulk of multiple garments. Along with a hefty undertunic, a mid-layer, a surcoat, and a cloak, you'd need to wrangle another layer of linen underwear on top of that. And if you were male, the job was slightly easier, but hardly painless. Men wore a basic tunic, one or two hose sort of like tight-fitting sweatpants, a belt, and a cloak. And to get all that to stay together, you needed fasteners, either a complicated brooch for a tunic or a series of laces and ties for everything else. And brooches do seem to have been lost to history, despite being practical, durable, and pretty, despite the fact that the Romans spread their fibulae-wearing ways across much of Europe. The fibula, as we discussed earlier, never really took back after the fall of Rome. The technology was known, but the sophistication of its manufacture was lost, leaving only a faint echo in northern France and Britain. No more the confident, secure weight of a well-engineered bronze fibula on your shoulder. Instead, you got the heavy, sudden, suffocating weight of a woolen tunic, a cotehardie, a surcoat, layers upon layers of fabric that feel less like clothing and more like a damp, mobile prison. The crisp order of Rome is a distant, crumbled memory. In this alternate timeline, you're in a dim, smoky longhouse now, or perhaps a drafty stone castle chamber, and you are cold, perpetually cold, in a way that seeps into your bones. And the reason you're cold, the reason a constant draft seems to find every possible entry point, is the utter, mind-numbing inadequacy of the fasteners available to you. Instead of the lost fibula, you have two options: the tedious, time-consuming knot of countless laces, or the simple, straight pin. You are living in the dark ages of fastening, and your fingertips are paying the price. Your day begins with a battle of attrition against your own clothes. If you're lacing a gown or a pair of hose, it's a good 10 minutes of tedious threading, pulling, and tying, your fingers fumbling with cold stiffened leather cords. But if you're using pins, it's a different kind of agony. You have a handful of them, made of iron or latin, a cheap brass-like alloy, blunt-ended and crudely fashioned. They are nothing like the sleek, sharp sewing pins we know today. To use them, you must gather a thick fold of your under tunic and your outer garment, and you must stab this wad of cloth with the pin, pushing it through with the heel of your hand until the point emerges on the other side. Then, you hope it holds. It rarely does, at least not securely. Every movement is a negotiation, a too sudden reach for a tankard, a brisk walk across a muddy yard, the simple act of sitting down. Any of these can result in a sudden pop and the unwelcome feeling of a seam gaping open, followed by a prickly cold draft in a most unpleasant place. This is the mainstream historical reality for centuries. Pins were essential, but they were also expensive and poorly made. They were such a crucial, yet troublesome, part of a woman's wardrobe that pin money became a literal term. It was a small annual allowance given to a wife by her husband specifically for the purchase of these necessary, frustrating little items. A will from the 14th century might carefully bequeath a sum for precisely this purpose. You're not just buying convenience, you're buying a fundamental tool for maintaining basic modesty and warmth, and you're constantly losing them. They fall out, they snap, they bend. An archaeological dig on any medieval site turns up hundreds of these lost pins, tiny metal casualties of the daily wardrobe war. But it's not all bad news. There is light at the end of this very long, very prickly tunnel. To understand that light, though, we need to take a detour into the history of magic. Yes, that stuff again. And yes, I know it seems like we talk about magic every week, but trust me, this will make sense in a minute. Back in the Middle Ages, people believed that a lot of things were caused by magic, like bad harvests, illness, even the weather. People also believed that magic could be used to protect themselves against all sorts of misfortune, like lawsuits, financial ruin, and unwanted romantic advances. And so, just as many people in the Middle Ages were quick to blame a curse for anything that went wrong, they were equally eager to lay a curse of their own. Of course, there were things that you could do to protect yourself from outside interference. Things like carrying a small bag of dirt from your own front yard, burying holy relics under your floorboards, or sprinkling your house with blessed salt water. But these methods weren't foolproof, which is where magic dolls came in. These poppets, as they were called, were made of cloth, clay, or wax, and they were designed to look like someone else, usually someone who had wronged you in some way. The idea was that if you did something to the doll, like stick a pin in it, that would do something to the person it represented, either inflicting harm or relieving their suffering. Now, the effectiveness of this sort of magic was hotly debated, not least by the church, who considered it heresy. The only thing that everyone agreed on was that poking a bunch of pins into a rag doll was probably the last thing you wanted to be doing when said doll's owner was standing right next to you. And so we come full circle back to those terrible pins that won't stay in your clothes. What if instead of buying new ones or wrestling with a stubborn lace, you could secretly punish the pin itself, cursing it so that it would do its job properly? Seems crazy, doesn't it? And that's because it is. But this was not a crazy idea in the Middle Ages. According to the church courts, people really were sticking pins into dolls and then burying them at crossroads or throwing them into wells. The logic was simple. The pin represented the pin in your clothes. By stabbing the pin in the doll, you were stabbing the pin in your clothes, forcing it to behave properly. And guess what? It worked sometimes. Not perfectly, but often enough to encourage the practice. After all, what other options did medieval folks have for dealing with faulty fasteners? Go ask the king for a new batch of state-sponsored brooches. Ha! Yeah, right. They didn't have Amazon Prime back then. They had pins, lousy pins, and they had magic, a whole toolbox filled with curses and charms and rituals. So they did what they had to do. Now, before you dismiss this as a quaint bit of folklore, remember that this mindset birthed modern voodoo and hoodoo traditions, and those traditions continue to thrive today. Magic is alive and well, and it's been influencing our world for thousands of years. Sure, people don't carry around charm bags anymore, but talismans are big business. In 2017, the global talisman market was valued at over $13 billion. And yeah, voodoo dolls are still a thing. Online marketplaces are crawling with sellers peddling handmade voodoo dolls for $10 a pop. Now, I don't want to tell anyone how to live their life, but if you're going to buy a voodoo doll online, please be sure to read the reviews. And while you're at it, make sure you follow us because thanks to you guys, we've turned our humble little corner of the internet into a bona fide voodoo doll empire. I mean, we don't have any gold coins yet, but we have close to 500,000 subscribers. So that's nice. And none of it would have been possible without pins. Those cursed pins, those blasted, broken pins, those beautiful, wondrous pins. Oh, glorious pins, my one true love. The only thing that makes the endless struggle of dressing worthwhile. Yes, it's me. I'm the one you've been waiting for. The one who finally puts an end to this insufferable, soul-destroying ordeal. It's me and my machine. This is the greatest invention in human history. It is the first step in the conquest of the new world, and it all started with a stupid debt. I was just messing around, seeing what I could make from some scrap wire. But then old man Hemmings showed up, saw what I'd made and offered me $15 for the thing. I thought it was a steal. Little did I know it would change the world. And now, with every single pin that my machine produces, I owe you $15. That's why I call it the Oh My $15. Come on, gimme a break. Make a wish and sew it real good. It is not difficult to see why we tell the story of Velcro as a tale of two Swiss engineers sitting in their barn and watching some burdock seeds cling onto their dog, like fairy tales. It is a neat narrative where inspiration strikes through observation, and a product destined to change the world is born. But those stories, as nice as they are mostly myths. They're origin stories, not origin inventions. They're not just bad history, they're bad business. Products don't just appear fully formed. They require years of research, prototyping, and refinement before they reach the market. Sometimes they never reach the market at all. Behind every Velcro fastener, every Teflon pan, every post-it note is a tangled web of dead ends, false starts, compromises, and lucky breaks. The heroes of those stories usually played a part, sure, but they weren't the only ones. Every great invention has a supporting cast of unsung heroes who provided the funding, the labor, the infrastructure, and the know-how to turn a bright idea into a marketable product. That's a big part of what we do at SciShow. We peel back the layers of how things work, both the obvious and the hidden, because the world is complex and it's getting more so. We can't rely on fairy tales. We need to understand the messy, complicated reality of how things happen. Consider this 3D printer. On one level, it's a miracle of modern engineering. A machine that takes digital designs and builds them atom by atom out of plastic filament. If you'd told me 20 years ago I'd one day be able to buy a machine that could recreate anything I wanted from a computer file, I'd have laughed in your face. Yet here we are. But the road from FDM plastics to consumer-level 3D printers was a long one, full of detours and dead ends. Let's take ABS plastic, one of the most popular filaments for 3D printing. Back in the late 80s when Stratasys was developing the first FDM machines, they needed a material that was tough and rigid and melted smoothly. ABS fit the bill perfectly. But as anyone who's worked with the stuff knows, ABS shrinks as it cools, and that can cause real problems in a 3D printer. The result was a whole generation of warped, misshapen prints, which in turn caused a lot of frustration among hobbyists. A few ingenious makers came up with solutions to the warping issue: heating beds and chambers, enclosures with fans and heaters. But none of these were truly elegant solutions. Finally, in the mid-2000s, a chemist at Evonik Industries, the chemical company that produces ABS, solved the problem from the inside out. Working backwards from the properties required for 3D printing, he created a proprietary blend of ABS that stayed dimensionally stable, even straight off the machine. Today that same material, now sold by many brands under the name ASA, is considered a staple for 3D printing. Did the chemist invent 3D printing? No, of course not. He was just one player in a long line of people who made the technology viable. But without his small contribution, it wouldn't have become the popular, accessible activity it is today. And of course, that chemist wouldn't have been able to do his job if not for the chemists who came before him, the ones who developed the fundamental concepts of polymer chemistry in the first place. History is full of brilliant individuals who changed everything with a single stroke of genius: Newton, Einstein, Curie, Tesla. But the truth is that progress isn't linear. It's more like a braided rope, each strand reinforcing the others. And sometimes it's the humble, unglamorous strands that make the whole thing hold together. Not everyone who contributes to progress does it on purpose. Take, for instance, Edward Custis. While working as an electrical engineer for Western Electric in the 1930s, he spent much of his time testing telephone parts. In one particular experiment, he was measuring the current flow through carbon microphones when he noticed something strange. As he varied the frequency of the input signal, he saw an unexpected peak around 400 Hz. At the time, this was meaningless trivia. There was no practical application for it and no one took much notice. 2 decades later, however, transistors were all the rage. Electrical engineers were busy designing circuits to take advantage of their unique properties. And one of those properties was that transistors produce audio signals at a very specific resonant frequency. And guess what? It was right around 400 Hz, exactly the same as the spurious peak Curtis had measured all those years ago. Suddenly, Curtis's accidental observation became hugely important. Credit for inventing the transistor ultimately goes to 3 Bell Labs engineers: John Bardeen, Walter Brattain, and William Shockley. But without Curtis's data, they likely would have had a much harder time designing functional circuits. In hindsight, it's easy to see Curtis's contribution as the missing link, but at the time, it was nothing more than an obscure footnote in a lab report. We have a similar story at NASA, where in the early days of the space program, engineers were trying to design a lightweight adhesive, strong enough to withstand the stresses of launch. Today we take for granted that spacecraft are built by gluing aluminum parts together. But back then, no one had any idea if it was possible. Strong adhesives were available, but they were also heavy, containing solvents and binders that added unnecessary weight. Then along comes Fred Lee, a chemist who had previously worked on the development of aircraft dope, a kind of protective coating for fabric wings. Lee and his team explored the use of light synthetic polymers as potential alternatives. Their tests soon revealed that a simple epoxy resin mixed with some sawdust could meet the strength requirements while saving on weight. NASA standardized the compound, which they called N6000, and used it extensively throughout the Apollo program. This adhesive bonded aluminum so well that the astronauts had to use a pneumatic chisel to separate the parts after testing. Unfortunately, this groundbreaking development in materials science did little for Lee personally. By his own admission, he didn't appreciate the significance of what he was doing. He was just following orders and doing his best. He wasn't motivated by a grand vision of space travel or the desire to leave his mark on history. He just wanted to serve his country and get a paycheck. Nonetheless, his work laid the groundwork for the advanced composites used in modern aerospace applications. These stories aren't exceptional. Hundreds of thousands of people across the world make similar contributions. to the progress of science and technology every day. And that's why we love making shows like SciShow. Progress isn't just good ideas, it's the countless good ideas, and there are even more countless contributors. When I tell people that I write video game history, I usually get one of two reactions. One is surprise. Oh, wow, that's a thing. And the other is, oh, my kid loves video games. Can I get him to stop playing and go outside? No. Anyway, when I say video games, what I really mean is the history of computers and software, which is obviously a vastly different topic. When people think of video game history, they think of Pac-Man and Space Invaders, the Atari era, when really the story starts long before that with mainframe computers. If you want to understand video games, you need to understand computers. And if you want to understand computers, you need to understand punch cards. Punch cards were used to program computers all the way from their earliest days in the 1800s to the 1960s and beyond. They're simple, cheap, and reliable. And if you want to know more about how punch cards worked, you should check out my video about Herman Hollerith and the Jacquard loom, because punch cards were originally developed for looms to control weaving patterns. But it's the same concept. Instead of using holes to tell a loom what to weave, punch cards use holes to tell a computer what to do. And those cards are punched using a special tool called a punch card, which is not to be confused with the cardboard rectangle you can buy at the grocery store. That's a punch card in the same way that a bottle opener is a card reader. It's true. The early days of computing are wild. Lots of things are called punch cards. Like you can have a punch card for a computer, a punch card for a loom, or a punch card for a clocking terminal. It's a big mess. So let's talk about how punch cards were punched. This is the legacy of a simple question. Why isn't there a hole in the bottom of the ocean? That's the question that bothered Georges Cour, a French engineer, in the late 1850s. Now, there are plenty of holes in the bottom of the ocean. You can poke a lot of holes in the bottom of the ocean. But Cooper wasn't interested in holes per se. He was interested in the absence of a particular kind of hole, a standard-sized hole that could be cut anywhere, consistently, quickly, cleanly. We take these holes for granted now. They're in our walls, in our fences, in our furniture. But they weren't always. In the 1850s, you could spend hours trying to hang a picture frame on the wall, slowly whittling away at the wood with a chisel and hammer until you got the right size. And even then, you wouldn't have any confidence in the result. It would never fit exactly. Cooper wanted better. He wanted standardization. He wanted a machine that could bore a perfect hole, consistently and efficiently, as fast as you could pull the trigger. And so he invented one. The machine's action was simple. As you pulled the trigger, a drill bit spun rapidly, powered by the explosive force of gunpowder. It was, in effect, a gun without a barrel. The mechanism was ingenious, elegant. In fact, it remains basically unchanged to this day. The old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, seems to have been written specifically for the hole puncher. But while Cooper had solved the problem he had set out to solve, he had also created a new one. How do you make a machine like this easy to use? Well, you need to train people to use it. You need to teach them the proper grip, the right angle of approach, the follow-up steps. And that was all well and good when the machine in question was a saw or a hammer. But this was a gunpowder-powered drill bit. This was inherently dangerous. And so Cooper needed a way to communicate caution. He needed to find a universal symbol for handle with care. After some brainstorming, he settled on a simple red circle with a slash through it. Pretty simple, right? Yeah. Somehow it doesn't seem to have caught on in the intervening 150 years. Instead, over time, that simple red circle became the universal symbol for do not do anything. It became the do not sign. Well, this video is sponsored by Brilliant. You don't need to be an electrical engineer to know that electricity is everywhere. Whether you're powering your house, powering a car, or powering your phone, chances are you're using electricity every day. So it makes sense that today a sponsor wants to help you learn about electricity and computer science interactively through fun puzzles and challenges. Brilliant is a great way to build up your STEM skills with daily lessons on math, physics, computer science, and more. I've been learning about large language models through their new course on Checked and Large Language Models. This interactive course teaches you how generative AI works with bite-sized lessons, helping you understand the technology that powers tools like Checked. It's easy to dive in and learn something new. Each lesson is beautifully designed and explained and broken down into small chunks, meaning you can learn at your own pace. And if you get stuck, you can read the explanation to understand why the answer is correct. And if you want to see how it all applies to the real world, Brilliant also offers courses on solar energy, neural networks, AI, machine learning, data science, algorithms, and much more. In the early 1900s, a man named Joseph Marie Jacquard didn't have a question that bothered him. He had a problem. He was running a textile factory and he needed to keep track of his workers' hours. Time clocks existed, but they were too expensive for his budget, and he needed a solution quickly. So he did what anyone would do. He bought a cheap watch and a block of wood and carved out a slot for the watch, then attached a cord to the minute hand, ran it over a pulley, and hooked it to a metal plate with a series of holes punched in it. At first, it was unwieldy, but gradually he developed a system where workers would pull the cord at the start and end of their shift, punching a hole in the metal plate. The system worked, and eventually Jacquard and a business partner patented it, along with a nifty little card reader that could mechanically count the holes on the plate. They called it a punch card, not to be confused with the punch cards used for looms or the punch cards used for firearms, or the punch card you can buy at the grocery store. Just to be clear, no one calls these things punch cards. Not yet anyway, at least for now. Their purpose was simple, recording data for later processing, in this case, worker hours. But it was the basic template for how punch cards would be used for decades to come. Paper or cardboard rectangles, punched with a specialized tool, could record data that would later be processed automatically by a machine. For a while, this remained relatively obscure, used for time clocks, for accounting ledgers, and for tabulating punch cards used for voting. Then, in 1924, something changed. That year, Herman Hollerith and his team produced the first census using punch cards, a massive undertaking that involved millions of records and thousands of machines. The project was a massive success. The punch card, a simple marriage of paper and automation, made it possible, and the potential applications were obvious. Data collection, storage, and retrieval had been automated. The rest of the 20th century would prove this concept, refining and expanding it, eventually leading to the development of modern computers. Before we move on, I want to pause and acknowledge that punch cards, by their nature, cannot represent every possible value. They're binary. They have a finite set of options. This is the basis for binary code and computers that only understand ones and zeros. So if you're counting the number of apples, it works. If you're listing favorite colors, not so much. Still, that hasn't stopped people from trying. One notable example is Ada Lovelace, the world's first computer programmer. She used punch cards to program Charles Babbage's analytical engine, essentially writing the first computer program. And in her notes about the machine, she imagined a future where punch cards could represent more than just numbers. She envisioned music boxes that could play any song, pictures that could be mechanically reproduced, complex mathematical calculations performed automatically. While none of those things happened during Babbage's lifetime, we're much closer now. Artists use punch cards to make music, mathematicians use them for calculations, and a guy named Steve Russell used them to make space travel, the first computer game ever. Today, punch cards aren't used for computers, at least not the way we think of computers. Mainframes, mini-computers, and personal computers, the stuff we use every day, all rely on electronic memory instead of paper cards. But punch cards are still used today for industrial controls, programmable logic controllers, and embedded systems like ATMs, and in some sense, they're more important than ever. While it is easy to imagine a punch card for a time clock or a punch card for a loom, or a punch card for a voting machine, it's harder to picture a punch card for programming a computer. But it is much easier to picture a punch card for controlling a robot arm on an assembly line. And that's what happens at Tesla. Tesla uses punch cards to program their robots. Yes, in 2023, amid all the hype about artificial intelligence, Tesla's Gigafactory robots are programmed with punch cards. They're run on software developed in the 1980s, and those programs are stored on punch cards. Each punch card can store 256 instructions, and once loaded into the machine, it becomes a standalone program. The cards are processed in sequence, in order, no feedback loop, no room for error. The instructions are absolute. If card 1 says step forward 1 meter, the robot does that and doesn't ask questions. Card 2 says extend right arm, and the robot does that and doesn't ask questions. If card 3 says step forward 1 meter again, the robot does that and doesn't ask questions. And this continues until the sequence is finished. The whole process is controlled offline. The punch cards are prepared in advance and loaded into the machine manually. These robots are not autonomous. They don't learn. They don't adapt. They follow instructions, and those instructions are encoded on punch cards. So the next time someone tells you that computers are getting smarter, you'll know the truth. Somewhere out there in a factory, a punch card is making a robot arm smarter than you. Now check out my video about how punch cards evolved from looms, or check out this video, or support me on a platform. In the heart of New York City, amidst the cacophony of its crowded streets and towering buildings, lived a man named Walter Hunt. Not much is known about his early life, nor does he leave any papers or diaries behind. Yet in the annals of history, his name echoes because of one simple, unassuming invention. In 1849, Walter Hunt created a device that revolutionized how people pinned their garments. This seemingly insignificant object was nothing less than the safety pin. Imagine for a moment the daily struggles of the pre-safety pin era. Ladies had to wrestle with cumbersome, easily misplaced pins. Their garments bore witness to their toils, marred by unsightly holes. But then came Hunt's ingenious solution, a pin that secured itself. With the twist of a wrist, men and women could now fasten their clothing without the need for intricate maneuvers. His invention was an immediate sensation, heralding a new dawn of convenience and style. And yet, in the grand scheme of things, the safety pin was just a tiny blip in the vast expanse of the Industrial Revolution. History tells us that this era witnessed seismic shifts in technology and society, marking a transition from agrarian life to industrialization. Steam engines roared to life, factories hummed incessantly, and machines churned out goods at an astonishing pace. But in the midst of this tumultuous transformation, what is the significance of a simple pin? What made the safety pin such a standout success amid the countless other innovations of its time? The answer to these questions lies in the pin's unique journey, a story that mirrors the larger narrative of the Industrial Revolution itself. It is important to start with some context. Before Walter Hunt took his idea to market, ladies and gentlemen alike used straight pins, basically pointed pieces of metal with blunt ends, usually fashioned from whalebone or copper. They were simple, cheap, and reliable, having been around for thousands of years. There were millions of them in circulation, and yet they suffered from some obvious flaws. People would regularly lose them, dropping them and failing to notice until they went to put on a garment only to find a hole in its wake. A skilled user could attach a pin to their dress or shirt with a flick of the wrist, but it required practice. Most people needed to kneel or bend over to pin their clothes. Straight pins were also dangerous. Their sharp edges could cut skin, making them tricky to handle, especially for children. Furthermore, they were unsuitable for heavy fabrics and thick clothing, often slipping out or tearing holes in delicate materials. While they had stood the test of time so far, there was room for improvement, a gap in the market that someone could fill and become very rich doing so. And so we come to Walter Hunt, who some accounts describe as a self-educated tinkerer. Others say he worked as a hatter or a shoemaker, and still others insist he was a failed businessman. We don't know which of these tales, if any, are true, but what we do know is that in 1849, Walter Hunt received a patent for a paper clip-like device that solved the straight pin's biggest shortcoming, securing itself. This invention was revolutionary. Its simple design was a triumph of practicality and aesthetics. Instead of dealing with the daily frustrations of traditional pens, users could now employ a single pin that fastened with a twist. It was like magic, except it was backed by sound engineering principles. As for why Hunt chose to apply for a patent, well, we don't know exactly. He might have wanted to protect his idea from copycats, ensure his name was associated with the invention, or secure funding to scale production. Or maybe he didn't think anyone would take him seriously, unless he could prove his idea was legitimate. Whatever the reason, on December 26, 1849, U.S. Patent No. 6674 was issued to Walter Hunt for his design of a detachable pen. It marked a pivotal moment, not just for Hunt, but for the world of fashion accessories. However, the real story began not with the granting of the patent, but with Hunt's decision to bring his product to market. And that's where things get tricky, because what happened next wasn't a straightforward tale of success. Instead, it was a series of missteps and near misses that tested not just the mettle of the safety pin, but of its inventor as well. At first glance, the safety pin seems like an inherently simple product, but that apparent simplicity was deceptive. Making it at scale proved to be anything but easy. Early versions were bulky, difficult to manufacture, and not always reliable. And though people loved the idea, they were wary of the pin's durability. These challenges were not merely technical. They were indicative of a larger truth about the Industrial Revolution. The era was not just about inventing new things, it was about producing those inventions on a large scale. Turning a one-off prototype into a mass-produced consumer item was a whole new set of challenges. Meanwhile, Hunt faced another hurdle, one that has echoed through the ages: the struggle to secure proper and fair compensation for his invention. In the beginning, the pin's production and sales were handled by others, notably James Setup Tools. Over time, the financial rewards of this arrangement proved elusive for Hunt, leading to a significant setback in 1856. Unable to make headway with his partner Setchell, Hunt decided to sever ties and venture out on his own. Armed with the knowledge gained from the previous years, he set about improving the design of the safety pin. However, this solo endeavor was short-lived. By 1860, Hunt's financial resources had dwindled to the point where he couldn't afford to keep his wife and daughter in the lifestyle to which they had become accustomed. Facing mounting debts, he sold his house, severed ties with his family, and tragically ended his own life on February 1860 at the age of 53. Yet despite these personal tragedies, the safety pin endured. Other entrepreneurs recognized its potential, including Thomas W. Evans, a successful manufacturer of sewing needles. Recognizing the value of the safety pin, Evans began to refine and promote the product, ushering it into wider recognition. This wasn't just a matter of seeing a good product and seizing an opportunity. It was an understanding of the broader economic forces at play. The Industrial Revolution was changing the way people shopped. Consumers were looking for convenience and quality, and the safety pin delivered. However, the road to triumph was not without its bumps. For instance, the sewing machine, invented by Elias Howe in 1846, posed both an opportunity and a challenge. While it made clothing production faster and cheaper, it also reduced the demand for hand sewing, thereby lessening the need for pins altogether. Yet the safety pin's versatility ensured its survival. It found niches in areas where the sewing machine was less effective, ensuring its continued relevance. The competition in the pin industry intensified, with some rivals resorting to underhanded tactics to try and steal the safety pin's thunder. One such example was George F. Blake, who attempted to replicate the safety pin under the guise of a different product, only to be foiled by Hunt's patent. Such instances of industrial espionage only highlighted the genuine innovation and foresight of Walter Hunt. Today, as we continue to grapple with issues of intellectual property rights, we can look back at Hunt's tenacity as a model. In the face of adversity, he didn't just invent a product, he fought to protect his invention. Unfortunately, this is where Hunt's story and the story of the safety pin diverge. While the pin went on to conquer the world, Walter Hunt never reaped the full rewards of his labor. His name might be etched in history books, but it was obscured during his lifetime. Despite the hardship he endured, Hunt's legacy lives on. His story is a reminder that innovation doesn't always follow a linear path, and that the true measure of an invention's success isn't just about its impact on the world, but also about the recognition given to its creator. So the next time you fasten a garment with a simple twist, take a moment to appreciate the quiet genius of the safety pin. Remember the man whose vision and perseverance brought this marvel into existence. Walter Hunt, the inventor who dared to dream big and change the world, one pin at a time. In his final years, living in poverty and separated from his family, Walter Hunt couldn't have imagined the global impact of his invention. Yet somehow, despite the personal tragedies and financial struggles, he held on to his vision. He saw not just a pin, but a solution to a common everyday problem. He understood the frustration of lost pins, the struggle to use straight pins, the dangers they posed, and he relentlessly pursued a better way. He experimented, he tinkered, he iterated, driven by an unwavering commitment to solve a simple problem. In doing so, he ushered in a new era of convenience and style. His invention not only changed the way people dressed, but also made a significant social impact. It freed people from the constraints of traditional pins, allowing them to focus on more intricate tasks. It was a quiet revolution led by a man who refused to let his circumstances dictate his success. His story is a testament to the power of human ingenuity, a reminder that great innovations can come from the most unexpected corners, and that sometimes the greatest triumphs are born from the simplest solutions. It's a lesson that transcends time, reminding us that the true measure of success lies not just in the end result, but in the journey of innovation and perseverance that got us there. The slightly off-center placement of the hat pin in her hair gives away her social status. It's not badly placed, just not well-to-do enough to have had a maid do it for her. And besides, she does it herself, the way a pianist practices scales to keep nimble. A tiny click as the pin catches the felt lining of her hat. The same reassuring sound she's heard all her life, since childhood, when she learned to fasten her own coat with the newly acquired gift of 3 bright copper pins from her older sister. The click. It's a quiet sound, but a mighty one. A tiny affirmation of self-reliance and independence. Just like the coin purse clipped to her skirt pocket, she carries her pins in a small, well-used case. A sweet pea scent lingers faintly on its velvet interior. She opens the case, revealing rows upon rows of gleaming pins. They are her livelihood. They are her only assets. And today, she needs them desperately. So many widows in the city, so many hats that need pinning. There's a delicate balance to the profession. You want to be visible, to make sure people see your pins, but you don't want to be too garish or flashy. Taste is everything. Mrs. Reynolds trusts her eye. She selects a nice navy blue pin with a delicate silver clasp. It will go nicely with her client's black traveling suit. The art of a good job done quickly is one she's mastered over years. She maneuvers the clasp with practiced ease, slides the pin into place, and then holds her breath while her customer adjusts the angle, trying to get it just right. A perfectly placed pin makes the wearer look at me, cared for, put together. And for a widow, that's extra important. The slightest hesitation on her part, the merest hint of a crooked placement, and the client will judge her harshly. She'll be sent away with a curt dismissal and no money. Mrs. Reynolds knows that her living depends on speed and finesse. Her client moves her head to the left, ever so slightly, and with a fluid twist of wrist, Mrs. Reynolds counters, sliding the pin deeper into place. It's not easy being a professional pin girl. It requires a sure touch, a steady hand, and an intimate knowledge of where every pin should go. She straightens her posture, bracing herself against the faint tremble of the shop table. Time is money. She places the hat back on her customer's head, smoothing out the crease. Satisfied murmurs come from behind her. She dares a glance at the hat and smiles. It's a difficult angle to work at, and the pin is flawless. She finishes the job with a flourish, tipping the hat up at an elegant angle. For a moment, before her customer departs, their eyes meet. Recognition, gratitude, and understanding pass between them. The lady leans closer. Do you know, my dear, how much I admire your skill? Such perfect taste. I simply couldn't manage without you. A few coins jingle into the palm of her hand, and the widow rises, clasping the purse close. She waits until the customer has walked away, and then lets her shoulders slump. That one was a tough spot to work in. She shakes her head, trying to clear away the dizziness. This is a profession with high demand and little training required. All you need is a steady hand and good eyesight. If you were lucky, you also had a natural feel for placement and color. Some women went door to door, making their services known. Others, like Mrs. Reynolds, set up shop on the street, hoping passers-by would take notice. Business was never steady. Days could go by without customers, weeks even. A sudden flurry of activity would sometimes break the monotony. When theater season came to town, the opera company was particularly generous, and for a time, Mrs. Reynolds did brisk business, repinning soiled hats and freshening up worn-out bonnets. Theatricals were an unpredictable lot, though, and soon she was back to scraping by. Her business depended on the whims of dozens of women, each with different tastes and different budgets. Money was hard to come by, but Mrs. Reynolds was respected in her line, and that counted for something. Good placement was a badge of honor. People looked at you, really looked at you. It mattered if you wore a pretty hat or not. To succeed, you needed more than just a steady hand. You had to dress well yourself, project an air of respectability, and you had to be fast. The widow tucks her earnings away, knowing it won't cover today's expenses. She hopes that tomorrow will be better. The pin maker who sold her the pins on credit this morning will understand. She tries to remember the boy's face, the way he stood, stiff and shy behind his workbench, afraid to ask for payment up front, unsure of her ability to pay. He had given her 3 shiny new copper pins anyway, a gamble on both sides. How old was he, she wonders, the son of a metalworker, living in a cramped tenement, scraping by on the wages of his father's trade. The advent of the pin had been a godsend for those who made them. She remembers the day clearly, the day her husband had brought home the first box of pins. I sell these things, he said, holding them up proudly. I am a pin man. The future seemed secure. She could hear the clatter of the machinery from their window every day. Soon, the family had invested their meager savings in helping him buy a stake in the pin factory. The Industrial Revolution had taken hold of the city. Smoke belched into the sky. The rumble of machinery drowned out the birds, and the stench of oil and coal clung to everything. A dark shadow had fallen over the horizon of the past, a gloom she hadn't seen before. She missed the sunlight of the old days, but the sun was a luxury now, so she kept her chin up, worked harder, and pinned hats for a clientele of widows. They were practical women, the same as her, managing as best they could. Their husbands had died in accidents, crushed by falling beams or suffocated by dust. Theirs were the widows who understood the value of a pin. Every penny counted, every stitch had to stay in place, every hat needed to last as long as possible. When the factory opened, she didn't tell her husband. She knew he wouldn't approve, but she liked seeing the sunlight, and the pin case jangled pleasantly on her hip. That innocent clack became her mantra, the steady beat of her life. The clatter of machinery, the whine of spinning wheels, the snap of pins snapping into place, the creak of the cart as she moved from house to house. Those sounds and the sight of smoke billowing from chimneys were the soundtrack and backdrop of her life. The sun might have faded, but she had her pins, and that was enough. As cities grew and shopping districts took shape, the pin girl's traditional role started to fade. Her competition increased. Department stores sprung up with fixed stalls of milliners offering to pin anything to everything. Their prices were lower, their quality more variable, but the big shops wouldn't stoop to visit houses, not even for the most fashionable of ladies. So the pin girl remained vital, trusted, and often the only option for women in modest means. But times were changing. As more and more women entered the workforce, many took on the task of pinning their own hats. When the first hat and feather shops opened, they drew crowds of eager customers. The spectacle of elaborate displays and stylish saleswomen was irresistible. And once inside, a purchase of a new hat often included a free or inexpensive pin to secure it. Suddenly, the pin girl found herself competing against shops that sold dozens of different pins. For a single hat, the cheaper department store pins were often the ones that stayed in place. The pin girl had to adapt. If she had a loyal customer, she would offer to pin a hat in such a way that several pins would be on display. An elaborate hat might wear 4 or 5 pins. Each could be a different style, each attracting the attention of a new potential customer. A quick, well-done job could mean the difference between 2 clients or 20. The pin girl's profession was in flux. No longer could she rely on simple skill or taste. She had to be aggressive, promoting herself, carrying samples, offering her services. In the end, though, it came down to the same. A gentle touch and a sure eye. The single, sharp click of a pin being secured was still the touchstone of her success. And as long as that held true, the pin girl would survive. They say punk never died. It just went underground. But what if some aspects of it never really left? What if punk continues to live on in subcultures today? And what if we continue to find ways to express ourselves and rebel even in this day and age? Because if punk is more than just music and fashion, it's a mindset, a DIY ethic, a resistance to being told how to think and how to look. And we can carry that attitude with us in our everyday lives. If you're ready to let your inner punk flag fly, join me as we rip up the rule book on conventional style and get ready to make a statement with the one and only safety pin. Before we get into how to wear a safety pin, let's learn about this legendary tool that might seem ordinary, but has a surprisingly rich history. Safety pins were invented in 1849 by Walter Hunt, an American inventor who was inspired to create a quicker and more efficient way to fasten clothing after witnessing his wife struggle with her corset. His invention consisted of a pin with a clasp mechanism that could easily be opened and closed, making it much more convenient than traditional pins. The utility of the safety pin soon became apparent, and it quickly gained popularity. For its practicality and versatility, it's hard to imagine now. But there was a time when a sewing kit without a safety pin was unimaginable. Today, we think of them as an essential part of any sewing kit, but it wasn't until the 20th century that they really took off. During World War II, soldiers used safety pins to fasten equipment and patches to their uniforms, which helped to popularize them even further. After the war, they became a common accessory for fashion-forward individuals who embraced their unique and unconventional appearance. And of course, they also found a place in the world of punk, where they've become a true icon. But why did these humble pins capture the imagination of the punk community? Well, it wasn't just about their functionality, it was also about their symbolism. For many punks, the safety pin represented a rejection of mainstream society and its values. It was a way of expressing their individuality and nonconformity. By wearing safety pins in unconventional ways, punks were able to make a bold statement and challenge the status quo. If you're looking to make a statement with your style, don't limit yourself to traditional ways of wearing a safety pin. Let's explore some creative and unexpected ways to rock this versatile accessory. 1. Statement earrings. If you want to add a touch of punk rock to your look, try wearing safety pins as earrings. You can wear them alone for a minimalist look or cluster them together for a more dramatic effect. This is a great way to experiment with different colors and metals. Just be careful when putting them in and taking them out so you don't damage your ears. Bonus points if you go for mismatched colors and sizes. 2. Layering necklace. Create a layered necklace by combining different lengths and styles of chains and fastening them together with safety pins. You can use colorful chains and pins to add a pop of color to your outfit, or opt for silver or gold for a more sophisticated look. Be sure to choose chains that won't tangle so you can easily put them on and take them off. 3. Bag charm. Add a touch of personality to your bag or backpack by attaching a safety pin charm. You can create a unique design by combining different colored pins and chains, or keep it simple with a single pin and a chain. This is a fun way to show off your style without committing to a full-on accessory look. 4. Belt bag. If you're feeling adventurous, try using a safety pin to turn a belt into a bag. This is a great way to upcycle an old belt and create a one-of-a-kind accessory. Just make sure you use a sturdy belt and attach the safety pin securely to avoid any accidents. 5. Hair accessory. Use a safety pin to create a unique hair accessory. You can clip a small chain or ribbon into your hair for a touch of punk rock flair. This is a great way to add some sparkle to your look without having to commit to a full-on jewelry piece. 6. Custom patches. If you're looking to add some flair to your denim jacket or backpack, try using safety pins to attach your own custom patches. You can buy pre-made patches or make your own with felt or fabric scraps. This is a fun way to express your personality and support your favorite bands or causes. 7. Temporary tattoos. Create temporary tattoos by arranging safety pins in different shapes and patterns on your skin. This is a fun way to experiment with body art without committing to anything permanent. Just be sure to use gentle pressure when applying and removing the pins to avoid any skin tears. 8. Shoe decoration. If you want to add some edge to your footwear, try decorating your shoes with safety pins. You can create a unique pattern or design on your sneakers or boots, or keep it simple with a single pin on each shoe. Just be sure to attach the pins securely to avoid any wardrobe malfunctions. 9. Upcycled jewelry. Repurpose old broken jewelry by using safety pins to attach charms and pendants to new chains. This is a great way to give new life to old pieces and create a truly unique accessory. You can mix and match different metals and stones to create a look that's all your own. 10. Shattered glass. Create a shattered glass effect by arranging safety pins in a jagged pattern on your arm or leg. This is a bold way to make a statement and add some edge to your look. Just be sure to use blunt pins and be very careful when applying and removing them to avoid any injuries. Remember, safety pins are a versatile accessory that can be worn in countless ways. Don't be afraid to experiment and find what works best for you. Whether you prefer a minimalist or maximalist look, there's a safety pin style out there for everyone. So why not give it a try and add some punk rock flair to your wardrobe? I love the way the author describes the safety pin as a middle finger forged in cheap British steel. It perfectly captures the essence of the punk attitude of sticking it to the man and refusing to conform to societal norms. The story of Jordan and her iconic safety pin in her cheek is a great example of how this symbol became so closely associated with the punk movement. Her willingness to pierce her skin so casually was shocking to the mainstream audience and challenged the prevailing beauty standards of the time. The fact that she did it with such ease and confidence showed that punks were not afraid of pain or discomfort, and they were willing to go to extreme lengths to express themselves. Another fascinating aspect of the safety pin's evolution is how it went from being seen as something cheap and tacky to becoming a symbol of cool and rebellion. It is a testament to the power of subcultures to take something ordinary and transform it into something extraordinary. The safety pin became a way for punks to make a bold statement and stand out from the crowd. It was a symbol of their individuality and a way of showing that they didn't care what other people thought of them. The author's description of the safety pin as a scarification, a ritual marking, is a beautiful way to describe how the punk community embraced the pain and discomfort associated with wearing it. It is a reminder that subcultures are often defined by their willingness to push boundaries and challenge the status quo. The safety pin became more than just an accessory. It was a symbol of their commitment to the punk lifestyle and a way of showing that they were willing to sacrifice their own comfort for the sake of their beliefs. One of the things I love most about the punk movement is how it gave voice to those who felt like outcasts and gave them a sense of belonging and identity. The safety pin became a way for people to connect with each other and form a sense of community. It was a symbol of their shared experiences and a way of showing that they were not alone in their struggles. As someone who's always interested in exploring how fashion and subcultures intersect, I found this article to be a fascinating read. The author's ability to capture the essence of the punk movement and the role that the safety pin played in it is truly remarkable. It is a reminder that sometimes the smallest objects can have the biggest impact, and that fashion is more than just a way of expressing ourselves. It's a way of making a statement and challenging the status quo. So what are your thoughts on how to wear a safety pin? Do you have any tips or tricks for incorporating this versatile accessory into your personal style? Share your thoughts in the comments below. How does a person get out of a sticky situation? With a little help from a friend. How do you say thank you to that friend? With a gift, a token of appreciation. What do you give someone who already has everything? Something small, something simple, something symbolic. The safety pin. Today it's practically an antique, but to generations of soldiers in the 20th century, this unassuming piece of metal was as indispensable as ammunition. From the muddy trenches of Flanders to the frozen wastes of the Eastern Front, to the steaming jungles of the Pacific, the humble safety pin played an extraordinary role in the Great War and the Second. Welcome back to the channel. Here, among the sprawling cemeteries and blood-soaked battlefields of Europe, the year is 1917. You are here for the king and country, ready to serve, strong and proud. Until you get to the trenches, the initial euphoria of patriotic duty soon gives way to the grim reality of trench warfare. Mud, rats, and disease become your constant companions, and the distant glory of adventure is replaced by the cold, hard fact of staying alive. And then there's the safety pin. At first, it might seem like an odd choice, a curious bit of whimsy amid the horror. But look again. This is no mere fashion accessory. This is a tool, a life-saving tool. As the war drags on, the once pristine uniforms lose their sharp creases and fade to shades of grime. Ammunition is rationed, food is scarce, and every item has multiple uses. The safety pin is ideal, small enough to fit in a soldier's pocket, tough enough to hold even heavy loads, and with a bit of ingenuity, it can replace almost anything that breaks or wears out. That frayed gas mask seal, safety pin. Lost a button on your tunic? Safety pin. Splint for a broken rifle? You got it, safety pin. Soldiers trade them like currency, a few pins for a cigarette or a sweet. Officers might scoff, but they use them too. When the war ends and the officers return home to their cushy lives, what do you think they bring back with them? Souvenirs, of course. Not the typical postcards and trinkets, but safety pins. They become a symbol of endurance, a badge of honor, proof that you survived the trenches. Back home, people might have worn them as part of their anti-war protest or feminist chic. These days, we might buy one off AliExpress for a wacky hat or goth dress up. But back then, it was a bit different. Then it was a genuine article, a product of real necessity, traded, hoarded, bartered, stolen. Every pin told a story. Every pin was a life raft in a sea of mud and blood. We think of the trench as a dark, dank pit, and that's true enough. But remember, it's also a home of sorts. A place where men try to eke out a semblance of normal life in the midst of chaos. It's in these moments that the safety pin truly shines, a beacon of practicality, a testament to the indomitable spirit of the ordinary soldier. The smell of fresh paint and varnish fades, replaced by the metallic tang of blood and sweat. Your uniform is torn, your boots are muddy, your rifle is caked in grime. But through it all, you hold fast. You clutch your trusty safety pin. A relic of a simpler time before the madness took hold, before the guns roared and the shells screamed, before the very earth turned against you. Now you are one of the lost generation, a castaway on the shifting sands of a senseless conflict, and the past seems a distant dream. But a soldier's gotta do what a soldier's gotta do. You are a cog in the relentless machine of war, a replaceable part in a vast, uncaring system. You don't choose the battles you fight, the weapons you wield, or the horrors you witness. All you have is the clothes on your back and the pins in your cap. So you improvise, you adapt, you overcome. The safety pin becomes your lifeline, anchoring you to the remnants of your humanity. You fashion it into a splint, a tourniquet, a marker, anything to keep you and your comrades alive. The Great War rages on, but you endure, bound together by the shared experience of unimaginable loss and the stubborn refusal to surrender your soul. In the suffocating heat of the Russian winter, The biting cold of the Western Front, the choking humidity of the Eastern Front, the safety pin is your steadfast companion. It witnesses the best and worst of humanity, and when the war is done, all you have left are memories, scars, and a handful of pins, each one a silent testament to the horrors you've endured. You survive, but the world you return to will never be the same. The old ways are gone, swept away by the tide of change, and you are forever marked by what you've seen, the things that haunt your nightmares and the memories that linger like ghosts. The safety pin is a tangible link to that past, a reminder of the bonds forged and broken in the crucible of war. As the sun sets over the scorched earth, casting long shadows across the shattered landscape, you know you are living on borrowed time. You are surrounded by the debris of a world gone by, the shattered remnants of buildings, the ghostly outlines of fallen comrades, the haunting silence of a graveyard. The war has ground you down, turning your dreams to dust and your laughter to ash, but still you cling to life, drawing strength from the faintest embers of hope. And what keeps those embers alive? The simplest of things, a well-placed pin, a symbol of resilience, a token of camaraderie. On this hellish landscape, you find solace in the smallest acts of kindness, a shared joke, a stolen cigarette, a moment's respite from the relentless barrage of death. And in these stolen moments, the safety pin becomes a potent symbol of defiance, a quiet act of rebellion against the chaos all around you. Amidst the cacophony of war, the safety pin offers a momentary reprieve, a shared joke, a stolen kiss. It anchors you to the fading fragments of your humanity, reminding you that you are more than just a number on a casualty list. You are a storyteller, a lover, a brother, a son, a father, and as long as you have your trusty pin, you can keep your humanity intact, one stitch at a time. The war may rage on, but in these stolen moments of joy, you find the strength to endure another day, to fight another battle, to hope for another tomorrow. For in the darkest depths of despair, the simplest of joys can offer the greatest comfort. The rumble of tanks and the crack of gunfire fill the air, mixing with the stench of decay and credite. Your surroundings are a blur of concrete and steel, a labyrinth of rubble and ruin. You move through it all with a sense of numb detachment, your senses dulled by the endless cycle of fear and exhaustion. You are a shadow of your former self, haunted by the ghosts of your past and the uncertainties of your future. But amidst the ruins, amidst the despair, there is a glimmer of hope, a tiny spark that refuses to be extinguished. It is the simple act of repairing, of mending, of making do with what you have. It is the safety pin, small but mighty, holding together not just your uniform, but your very sanity. It is a lifeline to the world of the living, a tangible connection to the memories of your past, a promise of a better future. You are more than just a cog in the machine of war. You are a survivor, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. And in your hands, the safety pin transforms into a symbol of hope, a beacon in the darkness, guiding you towards the light of a new dawn. You are young, strong, and full of ideals, eager to prove yourself in the face of danger. You join up, ready to fight for your country, for your beliefs, for your friends. But as the war drags on, you are hardened by the realities of combat. The idealism gives way to pragmatism, the hope to despair, the dreams to nightmares. But still, you endure. You cling to life, to the memories of home, to the hope of a better world. And in those moments of darkness, it is the simplest of things that keep you going, a friendly smile, a kind word, a shared joke, a stolen kiss. And in these moments, the safety pin becomes more than just a piece of metal. It becomes a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest depths of hell, humanity can endure. It is a testament to the power of the human spirit, a celebration of life in the face of death, a symbol of love in the face of hate. It is a tribute to the unsung heroes of war, the ordinary men and women who lived extraordinary lives, who faced unimaginable horrors, and who emerged from the darkness with their humanity intact. It is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure. It is a celebration of life in the face of death, a symbol of love in the face of hate, and it is a tribute to the unsung heroes of war, the ordinary men and women who lived extraordinary lives. The rustle of silk, the whisper of metal. We have seen the safety pin conquer the battleground. Now let it do battle in a realm where the stakes are different, but the outcome may be equally decisive. The late 19th century saw a proliferation of new fasteners, all designed to ease the labor-intensive task of closing garments, sewing, buttons, hooks, and eyes, and of course, the humble safety pin were at the forefront of this revolution. They were cheap, easy to use, and infinitely reusable. By the end of the century, Several companies had sprung up, all making slight tweaks on the original design, and two families, the Gimbels and the Rogers, were fighting bitterly over who had the right to sell them. Their lawsuits are a microcosm of the Gilded Age, a combination of cutthroat capitalism, legal technicality, and the struggle to protect intellectual property in a rapidly industrializing world. What follows is a quick summary of how the safety pin got to be the safety pin, a story I told in greater detail in my book Hooked. It doesn't concern us today except for the fact that it ended up setting the stage for a legal battle that would eventually involve the United States Supreme Court. In 1893, after years of litigation, the courts decided that neither family had a patent-worthy lock on the design, leaving the door wide open for copycats and competition. In theory, this should have benefited consumers with lower prices and more options, but in practice, it ushered in a wild, unfettered market. By the First World War, hundreds of manufacturers were turning out millions of pins a day, made of a dizzying array of materials, sizes, and quality. Some were robust, long-lasting items, while others were disposable, flimsy counterfeits. To stay afloat in the market, the old guard sought a way to distinguish themselves, and that distinction often came in the form of color. Although the familiar silver and gold-plated pins were popular, there was a surge in colorful enamel and celluloid models. Some were simple, featuring only a plain shaft with a colorful head. Others had multiple colors, including translucent varieties showcasing the complex chemistry of early synthetic plastics. But the key characteristic of the colored pin was that it was made of a unique alloy. Each manufacturer had a secret formula. Sometimes the difference between a safe, healthy pin and a potentially deadly one was only a slight change in composition. Those formulas were closely guarded trade secrets, ensuring brand loyalty and market share. Then came the war and suddenly everyone needed safety pins. The increased demand caught many manufacturers off guard. Those with patents on alloys rushed to expand production. Those without scrambled to find alternative materials and new ways of working. Some manufacturers tried to capitalize on the shortages by selling off their secret formulas to competitors. Other companies found ways to turn domestic rivals into wartime allies. Whatever their motivation, the result was a blurring of the lines between legitimate business practice and outright counterfeiting. Suddenly, every major manufacturer was producing colored pins and no one knew whose formula was whose. When the war ended, so did most of the wartime partnerships. The manufacturers went back to being fierce competitors, and with that, the floodgates of litigation opened once more. After the peace was declared, a wave of lawsuits swept across the country, each trying to prove that they had the true, original colored pin. There was only one problem: they didn't. The problem is known in patent law as inequitable conduct, deliberately misleading the public about the origin or nature of a product. In this case, every single manufacturer was guilty of it. The colored pins, by definition, were imitations. No one could prove a continuous line of production back to the 1890s. There were only flimsy records, eyewitness testimony, and mountains of colored pins, each claiming to be the authentic article. Courts were hesitant to wade into such murky waters. What followed was years of legal wrangling, accusations of fraud, and more than a few instances of mistaken identity. Ultimately, though, it didn't matter. The colored pins were inherently imitative, too similar to each other to be definitively distinguished. The lawsuits petered out as the decades passed, victims of the statute of limitations and the court's disinterest. But the legacy of this period of frenzied manufacturing and marketing had real consequences. In the ensuing peacetime, the perception of the safety pin as a disposable, mass-produced item took root. Shoppers were inundated with an overwhelming amount of choice and nearly identical products. Color, it seemed, was not enough to set one pin apart from another. Instead, the public had grown accustomed to buying generic staples like nails or screws, and the same mindset carried over to the safety pin. That, plus the fact that a lot of people probably had a box full of them at home already, created a dead zone of non-purchase. Manufacturers simply couldn't make enough profit to justify the expense of research and development, let alone marketing. This is not to say that significant innovations weren't introduced. The plastic-coated pin of the 1950s and the jumbo pin of the 1970s each solved real problems for their time. But these advances were mostly stopgap measures, useful items with very limited lifespans. The safety pin as we know it today is the same design as the ones turned out by the thousands in factories over 100 years ago. So let me close with this. As you examine the familiar clasp, consider this. The very nature of the object you're studying has conspired against progress. Its simplicity has ensured its endurance. The basic design of the safety pin was essentially perfected before the dawn of the modern age. It was then written in stone by the shifting sands of wartime production and cemented by the indifference of consumers. We live in an age of planned obsolescence and aggressive marketing, where objects are designed to fail or to be replaced. The safety pin stands in quiet, stubborn defiance. It has been gathering survivors since well before it was fashionable to care about such things. It is a relic of a time when function, not fashion, was the ultimate test of design. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But that doesn't mean it can't be improved. So look for those hidden details, those little touches that elevate the mundane to the extraordinary. Sometimes it's the smallest things that catch the eye, a subtle difference in the curve of the handle, the texture of the grip, or even the sound an object makes. It's all in the details. I am fascinated by this stuff, and I've dedicated my career to shining a light on the subtle, unheralded beauty of everyday objects. You've heard the saying, curiosity killed the cat, but what comes next? That's right. Curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. Hello, it's me and welcome to my channel. Let me ask you a question. What do you think is the most valuable thing you possess? Your car, your home, your phone? How about the clothes on your back or the shoes on your feet? What about the underwear currently shielding your delicate derriere? Do you think you could buy them again for the same price? Could you even find them on sale anywhere in the world? Chances are it would be pretty difficult, maybe impossible. Why? Because those things are almost certainly custom made. We don't mean literally. They're probably mass-produced items selected by big corporations that prioritize blandness over uniqueness. But we mean in a more personal sense. Those things fit you specifically. The gap between your butt cheeks is accounted for. The length of your torso is catered to. The fabric is soft where it needs to be soft, durable where it needs to be durable. In other words, those things were designed for you, even if unconsciously by some faceless committee at Levi's or Fruit of the Loom. This realization can be both comforting and unnerving. On the one hand, it means that someone out there is thinking about your body, even if it's just a programmer trying to turn a profit. But on the other hand, you probably couldn't replace them even if you wanted to. They're too unique, too bespoke. If you found an identical pair of jeans in a thrift store, they wouldn't fit quite right. They never will again. We bring this up because it relates to a peculiar aspect of the safety pin. For all its ubiquity, it doesn't really come in standard sizes. Not that you could tell just by looking at it. It's hard to know where the pin begins and ends, where it starts and stops being a pin. But instead of being infinitely adjustable, it has 6 possible lengths, and that is no accident. This is a feature, not a bug. You see, if you hold up a safety pin to the light, you'll notice that it's hollow. Inside is another smaller pin, and inside that is another, and another. They're nested inside each other like a set of Russian dolls. The smallest one is 1/4 of an inch long. The biggest one is 3 inches long. Each of those intermediate sizes is a full-fledged safety pin on its own, albeit one that requires a little bit of disassembly. But why? Who decides these intervals? Is it arbitrary? The answer is yes and no. The no part is easy. The proportions are based on a mathematical formula derived from basic geometry. The diameter of the shaft is half the length of the whole pin minus the thickness of the metal. Simple as that. But the yes part is harder to explain. Once you know the formula, you realize that the same pin could theoretically be made 1/8 of an inch, 1 3/8 inches, or 6 feet long. Clearly, the possibilities need to be winnowed down somehow, and that introduces a human element, a moment of subjective decision-making. The intervals aren't just determined by math, they're also determined by utility. At the shorter end, you start getting into sewing territory, which is a lot more fiddly and finicky than putting a pin in a shirt. On the higher end, you run into physics. Pins are rigid, but they're not infinitely rigid. They bend a little bit, and they do so proportionally. A 2-inch pin bends twice as much as a 1-inch pin when under the same amount of pressure. Eventually, you get to a size where the bending becomes too extreme, where the pin can't really serve its basic function. If you tried to make a pin that was 10 feet long, it would just collapse in on itself. All of which is to say that while the safety pin is indeed a near-perfect object in many ways, it isn't an infinitely perfect object. It needs humans at either end of its production to make a judgment call. Too short or too long and it loses its utility. Just right and it takes its place in the wonderful, messy, sometimes frustrating middle. When we think of the safety pin, we tend to imagine it as an everyday object, something so omnipresent that it blurs into the background. like the air or the sky. We imagine it as something without a history, something that just always existed, but that's far from the case. The safety pin didn't just arrive fully formed. It went through many iterations before arriving at its familiar form, and it wasn't always called a safety pin. Sometimes it was called a shield, sometimes it was called a button hook, sometimes it was called a wampum. These early versions were usually made of whalebone, bone or wood. They had names and functions. They were embedded in clothing traditions and commercial relationships. They had styles, shapes, and sizes. They were sold at fairs, markets, and general stores. And then everything changed. Industrialization hit like a runaway train, obliterating traditional crafts and barreling towards an industrialized future. Factories hummed, gears turned, and suddenly it seemed like the world had been irrevocably altered. The old ways were dying, but the safety pin, well, it was just a humble safety pin. No one thought much of it until one man did. And in that moment, everything changed again. Walter Hunt, a New York cloak and umbrella manufacturer, saw the potential of the pin. He saw how it could transform the clothing industry and maybe the world. And so he did something crazy. He left his wife and kids, gave away most of his stuff, and moved to Philadelphia to become a full-time inventor. He tinkered and experimented and slowly began to refine the modern safety pin. He added a spring and a clasp, made it smaller and more portable, and finally, after years of work, he figured out how to make it in large quantities. He created a machine that could produce 10,000 pins in an hour, and in 1849, he filed a patent, a document that would define the destiny of millions of pins to come. Here is the relevant excerpt. A pin having a spring clasp and a shank formed in one piece with a head, substantially as described, and also a notch in the clasp and a shoulder on the spring to coke therewith. Words, 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 legal mumbo-jumbo that describes the design down to the tiniest nuance. In other words, a recipe that couldn't be replicated, a blueprint that couldn't be reverse engineered, a legal document that would either make him a fortune or ruin his life. And so began the second life of the safety pin, the era of mass production, lawsuits, and global trade. The rest is history. Or is it? It turns out that the story we just told you isn't the only version. There's another one, a secret history that contradicts the first one at every turn. According to this alternate telling, the safety pin has been around since biblical times. Some say it was the ancient Egyptians who first conceived of the idea, though they used it mostly for decorative purposes. Others point to the ancient Assyrians, who crafted more functional pins out of bone and ivory. Still others argue that it was the ancient Greeks who were the true innovators. But all agree that the pin existed in some form long before Walter Hunt ever laid eyes on one. We can't tell you which version is correct, but we can tell you this. The safety pin is an object with a truly remarkable journey, a strange history full of twists, turns, and surprising connections. From its ancient origins to its modern incarnation, it has captured the imagination of people around the world. Whether it was invented once or many times, it has endured the test of time and continues to be an essential part of our daily lives. The safety pin is a testament to human ingenuity and adaptability. It's a reminder that even the simplest objects can have a profound impact on our world. So the next time you reach for a safety pin, take a moment to appreciate its rich history and the countless lives it has touched along the way. And remember that the story of the safety pin is also the story of humanity, a story of innovation, adaptation, and the relentless pursuit of progress. In the ever-evolving world of fashion, the safety pin has proven to be a timeless accessory, a versatile tool that has transcended cultural boundaries and stood the test of time. Whether used to secure a loose button or embellish a garment, the safety pin's simplicity and functionality have made it an indispensable part of our everyday lives. But beyond its practical applications, the safety pin has also become a powerful symbol, representing everything from practicality and resourcefulness to rebellion and self-expression. With its ability to connect seemingly disparate elements together, the safety pin has become a metaphor for the interconnectedness of our world. And yet, despite its enduring popularity, the safety pin has not been immune to controversy. Over the years, its use has sparked debates surrounding appropriation, cultural sensitivity, and the meaning of symbols. As society evolves and our understanding of the world expands, the safety pin will undoubtedly continue to be a source of both fascination and debate. But one thing is certain: the safety pin's impact on our world is undeniable. Its simple yet ingenious design has revolutionized the way we dress, decorate, and interact with the world around us. And as long as there are buttons to fasten and garments to adorn, the safety pin will continue to be an essential part of our lives. So the next time you reach for a safety pin, Take a moment to appreciate its rich history and the countless lives it has touched along the way. Remember that the story of the safety pin is also the story of humanity, a story of innovation, adaptation, and the relentless pursuit of progress. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the fascinating world of the safety pin. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop asking questions. Have you ever noticed how the coolest designs often begin with simple constraints? Take the automotive industry, for instance. Many of the most iconic cars were born when engineers faced limitations in terms of materials, technology, or even just plain old budget. But instead of seeing these limitations as roadblocks, brilliant minds found ingenious ways to work around them, birthing vehicles that not only overcame their constraints, but also captured the hearts and wallets of car lovers worldwide. Now let's talk about a product that sounds boring at first glance, the humble safety pin. But don't be fooled by its seeming simplicity. After all, it was designed over 150 years ago and has remained remarkably unchanged. What room is there for improvement, right? Well, quite a lot, actually. The problem with the traditional safety pin isn't with its design per se, but rather with the materials it's made from. Today's safety pins typically consist of two basic components: the base, usually made from brass or steel, and the coating, often nickel-plated. While these materials served their purpose in the past, they fall short in several key areas. For starters, the base metals can be prone to corrosion and rust formation, especially in humid environments. And let's not get started on how easily they can leave unsightly marks on clothing. As for the nickel plating, it might look shiny and appealing at first, but it's not exactly the most durable solution. Over time, it can wear off, revealing the less glamorous base metal underneath. Furthermore, nickel is notorious for being allergenic, which can cause skin reactions and discomfort, particularly for individuals with sensitive skin. All of this begs the question, why not create a safety pin that sidesteps these limitations? Enter a trailblazing team of engineers and designers ready to reinvent this age-old fastener. Their mission: to craft a top-tier safety pin that not only outperforms its predecessors, but also sets new industry benchmarks. To achieve this lofty goal, they've embarked on a journey of material innovation. They're swapping out the traditional base metals for stainless steel, a robust, corrosion-resistant material known for its strength and durability. And instead of relying on a flimsy nickel plating, they're opting for a specialized PVD coating. This cutting-edge treatment involves vaporizing a thin layer of titanium and tantalum in a vacuum chamber and depositing it onto the stainless steel surface. The result: a finish that boasts exceptional hardness, 5 times that of standard nickel plating, along with a beautiful iridescent glow. This innovative approach not only addresses the durability and corrosion issues of conventional safety pins, but also introduces exciting possibilities in terms of aesthetics and functionality. With its superior materials and construction, this next-gen safety pin promises to redefine performance standards, offering consumers a product that is not only reliable and long-lasting, but also visually stunning. And the best part, it retains the simple, straightforward design that has made the safety pin a beloved household item for generations. Now get ready to witness a demonstration that will blow your mind. The difference between the old and new safety pins is so dramatic that even a blindfolded individual can discern them with ease. Let's see what all the fuss is about. The classic safety pin, huh? Well, it's okay. We managed to put it through some light use without it breaking. But can we say the same about its fancy new cousin? Time to put our shiny new safety pin through its paces. Even under extreme conditions like humidity, it stands strong, showing no signs of rust or corrosion. And how does it fare against the scratch tests? Well, let's just say it emerges unscathed while its predecessor shows clear signs of wear. This is where the magic of PVD truly shines. The coating's remarkable hardness means that scratches and abrasions simply can't penetrate the surface. But it's not just about durability. The upgraded safety pin boasts an impressive weight reduction of 36% compared to the original. Yet it doesn't feel flimsy or cheap. Instead, it strikes the perfect balance between robustness and lightness, making it a joy to use. One last test, the ultimate litmus test for a safety pin. How well does it do at keeping those pesky fabric layers in place? Spoiler alert, it does an outstanding job. The safety pin's superior grip ensures that whatever it fastens stays securely in place, leaving us with nothing but admiration for this revamped design. The team's mission is accomplished. They've created a safety pin that not only meets, but exceeds expectations, setting a new industry benchmark for quality, durability, and style. So the next time you reach for a safety pin, you'll know that the humble fastener has evolved into something truly extraordinary. Now let's explore a unique and artistic application of the humble safety pin. Artists like Cornelia Parker have incorporated this everyday item into their sculptures, elevating it from a mundane household object to a thought-provoking element of contemporary art. Parker's work, Cold Dark Matter, exemplifies this transformation. At first glance, it appears to be a simple white cloth suspended within a glass box. However, upon closer inspection, viewers discover a captivating twist. The cloth is meticulously pinned to the glass using hundreds of safety pins, creating a visually striking and intricate design. This piece challenges conventional notions of sculpture by utilizing an unexpected material, the safety pin. By transforming a mundane object into an artistic medium, Parker invites viewers to reconsider the boundaries between high art and everyday items. The safety pin, once relegated to the realm of household utility, now takes center stage as a captivating element of a contemporary sculpture. It serves as a reminder that creativity knows no bounds, and that artistic expression can be found in the most unexpected places. In conclusion, the history of the safety pin is a testament to the power of simple yet effective design. From its humble beginnings as a straight pin to its evolution into the familiar safety pin, we know today this invention has stood the test of time. Its enduring popularity can be attributed to its practicality, affordability, and versatility. Whether used for sewing, mending, or fastening objects, the safety pin has proven to be an indispensable tool for countless individuals across the globe. Moreover, the safety pin has transcended its functional purpose to become a cultural icon. Its distinctive shape and functionality have inspired artists, designers, and even fashion enthusiasts to incorporate it into their creative expressions. From Cornelia Parker's thought-provoking sculptures to the trendy fashion accessories, the safety pin has successfully bridged the gap between functionality and aesthetics. Furthermore, the safety pin has played a significant role in popular culture, featuring in movies, television shows, and literature. Its presence in various forms of media has cemented its status as a recognizable and relatable symbol in our collective consciousness. Perhaps most importantly, the safety pin has earned a special place in our hearts as a symbol of resilience and resourcefulness. Its ability to hold things together, both literally and metaphorically, has resonated with people from all walks of life. In times of need, the safety pin has proven to be a reliable companion, offering a quick and easy solution to everyday challenges. As we look to the future, it is clear that the safety pin will continue to thrive. Its timeless design and unwavering functionality ensure that it will remain relevant for generations to come. Moreover, the safety pin's adaptability and cultural significance make it a prime candidate for continued innovation and artistic expression. Who knows what new uses and interpretations await this humble yet extraordinary invention? In conclusion, the safety pin's journey from a simple straight pin to a global phenomenon is a remarkable tale of evolution and adaptability. Its enduring popularity, cultural impact, and symbolic significance make it a true icon of our time. As we reflect on the humble safety pin's rich history and bright future, we are reminded of the profound impact a seemingly ordinary object can have on our lives. It is a testament to the ingenuity of its inventors and the universal appeal of its design that the safety pin continues to capture our imagination and serve as a trusty companion through the years. So here's to the safety pin, a simple yet powerful invention that has secured its place in history as a symbol of practicality, creativity, and resilience. May its legacy continue to inspire and endure for generations to come. Hey there and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at a humble object that has become a ubiquitous part of our daily lives, the safety pin. The safety pin is one of those everyday objects whose design we rarely stop to consider. We use it so frequently and take its usefulness for granted that we may not even realize how revolutionary it was when it first appeared. Its simple design and functionality have made it an indispensable part of our lives. From securing loose clothing to holding up our favorite scarf, the safety pin has proven invaluable. However, what many people don't realize is that the safety pin has a rich history, and its design has evolved significantly over the years. In this video, we'll explore the fascinating journey of this humble object from its early beginnings to the modern safety pin that we know today. We'll begin by examining the origins of the safety pin and how its design has changed since its invention. We'll then explore the various types of safety pins available today and the different materials and designs used to manufacture them. Finally, We'll discuss the future of the safety pin and how its design may continue to evolve in the years to come. It all began in 1849 when a New York inventor named Walter Hunt created a device that would change the world forever. Hunt's invention was a simple yet ingenious design consisting of a wire loop attached to a spring-loaded clasp. This design allowed users to fasten clothing together quickly and securely, eliminating the need for cumbersome buttons or pins. But Hunt's invention wasn't immediately successful. In fact, it took several years for the public to warm up to the idea of using a wire to secure their clothing. At first, many people were skeptical of the safety pin's practicality and durability, but Hunt persisted and eventually his design began to gain traction. As word spread about the convenience and versatility of the safety pin, it quickly became a popular accessory among women and children. The design's simplicity and affordability also contributed to its widespread adoption. In the years since Hunt's original design, the safety pin has undergone several iterations and improvements. Today, safety pins come in a wide variety of shapes, sizes, and materials to suit a range of uses and preferences. One common type of safety pin is the standard straight pin, which closely resembles Hunt's original design. These pins are typically made of metal such as brass or steel and feature a pointed head and a spring-loaded clasp. Straight pins are commonly used for fastening clothing together or for securing fabric during sewing. Another popular type of safety pin is the breakaway pin, which is designed to easily detach when pulled in a specific direction. These pins are often used for applications where a more secure connection is required, such as in medical settings or for industrial purposes. Breakaway pins typically feature a special clasp mechanism that allows them to detach quickly and effortlessly. Additionally, some safety pins are designed to be reusable, while others are intended for single use only. Reusable pins are typically made of durable materials such as metal or plastic and can be used multiple times for various fastening tasks. Single-use pins, on the other hand, are often made of paper or cardboard and are designed to be discarded after a single use. As we mentioned earlier, safety pins come in a wide variety of shapes, sizes, and materials. The choice of material depends on the intended use of the pin. For example, metal safety pins are durable and corrosion-resistant, making them suitable for general fastening tasks or for use in harsh environments. Plastic safety pins are lighter and more flexible than metal pins, and are often used for fastening fabric or for use in crafts. The size of the pin also varies depending on its intended use. Standard straight pins are typically around 1 inch in length, while breakaway pins are often longer to provide additional security. Overall, the safety pin has proven to be an incredibly versatile tool that can be used for a wide range of purposes. Its simplicity and effectiveness have made it a staple in homes, workplaces, and various industries around the world. But what makes the safety pin so effective and why has it remained such a popular choice for fastening objects? One of the key features that makes the safety pin so effective is its simplicity. The basic design of the safety pin is straightforward and easy to use, requiring no additional tools or skills to operate. This makes it an ideal choice for a wide range of users, including children and people with limited dexterity. Additionally, the safety pin's flexibility allows it to be used in a variety of situations. It can be used to fasten clothing together, secure fabric, or hold objects in place. This versatility has contributed to its popularity and widespread adoption. Another factor that has made the safety pin so popular is its affordability. The safety pin is a relatively inexpensive tool, making it accessible to a wide range of consumers. This is particularly important for items like clothing fasteners, which are often used by people from all walks of life. The low cost of the safety pin has also made it an attractive option for businesses and industries that require large quantities of fastening devices. Over the years, the safety pin has become an iconic symbol of practicality and ingenuity. It has been featured in art, literature, and popular culture, and has even been used as a political symbol. The safety pin's simple design and functionality have made it an object of fascination for many, and its history is a testament to its enduring popularity. The safety pin is a remarkable invention that has stood the test of time. Its simplicity, versatility, and affordability have made it an indispensable tool for people around the world. Whether you are using it to fasten clothing together or holding objects in place, the safety pin is a reliable and effective solution. So the next time you reach for a safety pin, take a moment to appreciate its rich history and ingenious design. You may be surprised by how much thought and innovation has gone into such a seemingly simple object. The story of the safety pin is a reminder that even the most mundane objects can have a profound impact on our lives. From its humble beginnings as a simple wire loop to its current status as a global phenomenon, the safety pin has proven to be an enduring and versatile tool. Who knows what the future may hold for this iconic fastener? Perhaps we will see new materials, shapes, and uses for the safety pin that we can't even imagine yet. But one thing is for sure, the safety pin will continue to be a staple in our everyday lives for many years to come. So what do you think? Do you have a favorite type of safety pin or a unique way of using it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more fascinating content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Now that you've learned about the history and evolution of the safety pin, it's time to put your knowledge to the test. Here are some questions to see how much you remember. How was the safety pin invented, and what year did this happen? What was the name of the inventor? What was the original purpose of the safety pin? Name at least 3 different types of safety pins and describe their unique features. What factors have contributed to the enduring popularity of the safety pin? How has the safety pin been depicted in art, literature, and popular culture? What does the story of the safety pin teach us about the nature of innovation? Can you think of any ways that the safety pin could be improved or adapted for new uses? Don't worry if you don't remember every detail. The important thing is to review the information and reflect on what you've learned. So there you are, holding a simple safety pin. Maybe you picked it up out of a laundry basket. Maybe it came with a package. Maybe you found it on the ground, a shiny brass relic amidst the grime of the city sidewalk. No matter how you got your hands on it, the pin is innocuous enough, but something about it strikes you as strange. It feels impossibly well made, almost too perfect to be merely functional. What is it about this humble object that makes it seem so quintessentially 19th century? Well, part of it is the weight of centuries of meaning, of superstition and symbolism. Feels heavy on the simple brass form. But progress is relentless, and the urge to refine, to improve, to iterate is a force as powerful as culture itself. The smoky, steam-powered factories of the 19th century have given way to clean, brightly lit laboratories and design studios. The air here smells of ozone and fresh plastic, not coal and sweat. You are no longer holding a cultural artifact. You are holding a prototype. The safety pin is on the drawing board again, subjected to the exacting gaze of materials scientists and ergonomic designers. The question is no longer what does it mean, but what more can it be? So what if we told you that the safety pin, in its most basic form, hasn't changed since 1849? Yep, that's right. Since Walter Hunt filed his patent for the article of clothing for fastening, the pin has remained stubbornly unchanged. Sure, there have been minor tweaks to the harp shape, improvements to the spring tension, and various attempts to add additional features, but for over 170 years, the fundamental design has remained basically the same. Why is that? Well, when it comes to fasteners, there are 2 main goals: security and simplicity. With the safety pin, you want it to hold your clothes together tightly and reliably, but you also want it to be quick and easy to open and close. For a long time, the straight pin was the go-to fastening method. It's simple, cheap, and easy to make, but it requires 2 hands to use and presents a nasty stabbing hazard. Then came the invention of the button and the zipper, which revolutionized the way we dress, making it possible to put on pants without the aid of a third party. But these innovations didn't make the straight pin obsolete. It continued to find uses in crafts, sewing, and, yes, even as a makeshift jewelry piece. But it wasn't until the mid-19th century that someone had the genius idea of putting a spring inside a pin, thereby creating the world's first pogo pen. When Walter Hunt patented his design, he called it a clasp for garments, and at first glance, it looks like a fairly minor tweak. It's essentially a bent piece of wire with a loop and a spring attached. But the impact this simple addition had on the clothing industry was monumental. With the safety pin, Hunt created the first truly universal fastener. It could be used on fabric of any thickness, could attach to any type of clothing, and required only 1 hand to operate. It was also much safer than a standard pin. The sharp point was enclosed within a protective sheath, so while it posed a risk to those who tried to stab someone with it, it was far less likely to do any real damage. Today, it's hard to imagine a world without the safety pin. It's an essential part of every sewer's toolkit and an iconic symbol of thrift store chic. But despite its ubiquity, there are still many people who don't know who invented it or how it works. Let us enlighten you. The safety pin is deceptively simple, but its design is actually brilliant in its simplicity. When you push the pin into fabric, the point penetrates the outer layer, but the larger diameter of the shank pushes the fabric back outward, creating a small bulge. This bulge acts as a stop, preventing the pin from going through entirely. The spring inside the pin is then compressed, securing the pin in place. To remove the pin, simply pull it back out. Voila! The very clever engineering that went into making this simple device so secure and so efficient is one of the reasons why it has stood the test of time. But there's another reason as well. The safety pin is so successful because it's a highly versatile tool. It can be used on a wide variety of fabrics and garments, and it can be easily adapted to new uses. From holding up a hem to keeping a strap in place, the safety pin is the ultimate problem solver. And it's this versatility that has allowed the safety pin to thrive despite stiff competition. Over the years, dozens of competing fasteners have tried to take the safety pin's place, but none have succeeded. The plastic clip, for example, is cheaper and more durable than a safety pin, but it can't be used on delicate fabrics, and it can't be bent into different shapes. Velcro is great for outdoor wear, but it's too bulky for delicate garments. The zipper reigns supreme on jackets, but is totally useless for holding up a skirt. Each of these fasteners has its strengths and weaknesses, but none can match the sheer utility of the safety pin. So while other fasteners may come and go, the humble safety pin is likely here to stay. That's why we think that Walter Hunt's design genius was in realizing that sometimes simple is better. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, he created a device that was perfectly suited to the task at hand. In doing so, he created an icon. The safety pin is more than just a fastener. It's a symbol of ingenuity, resourcefulness, and practicality. And that's why we think it's so quintessentially 19th century. The Industrial Revolution gave rise to an era of mass production and technological innovation. But it was also a time when people were beginning to appreciate the value of simplicity and efficiency. The safety pin embodied these ideals, and that's why it became so popular. In a world that was rapidly changing, the safety pin was a constant, a reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. So next time you reach for a safety pin, take a moment to appreciate the genius of its design. It's been delighting sewers and annoying parents for over 170 years, and we can't imagine a world without it. That's all for today. See you next time.